coming back on, and then admit everybody in. So
And I can do some. I mean, I can
but
go
I
through
think
this, the
yes.
presentation, and
Yeah.
you can jump in at any time, or
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you everybody for joining us. I think we're going to have a few more people arriving, but it's now 4:30, so I'm just going to jump on and share. I've just got like a quick little introduction. So hopefully you can all see my so we've just got our welcome to our Smart Directors series, and we're talking about strategic planning, and we've got the awesome Eddie Senatore. You're a business strategist, you're also a licensed liquidator.
yeah.
But yeah, so welcome, Eddie. So
Thank you.
woo!
Thank you.
So I'll let you get your screen up because I know
Yeah.
that you've got a lot of data
Yeah.
here to share with everybody,
Yeah.
and just to frame it for everybody, like there's a lot on the slides that we're about to present to you, but hopefully by the end of it
Yeah.
you will be able to do a strategic plan for your business in 30 minutes
Yeah.
after this
Yeah.
this session. So
Yeah.
so yeah,
Thank
so over to you, Eddie.
Yeah, great.
Let's talk about it.
Yes, and I'll share the screen in a minute. And I just wanted to
Mm,
say thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to present. I enjoy talking about these things, and I do enjoy a chat. So it could take longer than 30 minutes, but what I've learned from being a liquidator for all these decades is that if you're not organised, then business is really difficult.
mm,
But the um, easy bit, the good news and the easy bit is that it's easy to get organised. And when we talk about strategic planning, we have these visions in our head of, old school, really big documents that sit on your shelves. They're like 3 or 4 volumes.
mm.
And I think I've read a lot about strategy, and I've come across a couple of players in the strategy space that come out of America. One I'm not going to talk about today because his material is really dense. I really want to talk about these guys, Martin and Leafly. They're long-term strategists. They're born out of Harvard Business School. They've been employed by Procter and Gamble to get their strategy and their business up and running, and they've developed this idea of playing to win, and the
Yes.
notion of having a strategic plan that's really detailed is just going to drive people. So these two guys said, look, it's really easy. And what I want people to do is to take away one lesson from each of these slides. And so I
Mm.
presume Jules has got a copy of them.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll send them through with the
yeah,
recording. Yeah.
yeah. So their view is that you need to start thinking about, so this is what you need to learn from this page, this slide, is you need to start thinking about winning as opposed to the word competing. And we will talk about competition in these slides, but in order to assess yourself, you need to start thinking about the concept of winning. The second thing that I'd like you to get out of this slide is strategy is all about making choices. It's not about just spreading your resources and following the next trend. It's about making choices. And that's the hardest thing about business.
Mm.
Once you've made those choices, then the rest will start falling into line.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about on this page is what's called competitive advantage. And we'll get to that in some slides down the back. And that's, we talk a lot about competitive advantage, but it's a really simple, complex concept, really. It's like, what have I got that gives me an edge over my competitors? That's what I need to explore, and that's what I need to exploit, because no one can copy that, because that's me.
Yeah.
Like Jules runs the coaching business. That's her, and she does it her way. That's her advantage. No one can replicate that. And so you'll get a following. That's what's important. Even though this is the introductory slide, these are the things. It's just a mind shift to say, okay, we're talking about winning. We have to make choices, and I need to understand what my competitive advantage is. So Martin says you've got 5 questions to ask yourself and answer to come up with your strategy. And these 5 questions, and we'll go through them, obviously. Consider things like your ultimate aspirations, the areas that you need to compete in, because when you go to market, there will be other players in that. So you're competing in that, but you need to take this notion of how do I explore this concept of winning when I do go into market with my basket of services or goods? How do I know I'm winning? And finally is identify how you will outperform your competitors. It's that old story about, I've got this competitor, they do all these really good things. And then the wise old business person says, and that's not what you should be focusing on, is you should be focusing on what your competitors aren't doing well. And see if you can work on that. So here are the 5 questions, and it's a cascade, and it's beautiful, right? And and I'll explain why it's beautiful in a minute. This next page really gives you the answer. And I know for small business, some of this may not apply, particularly the next slide, but here are the 5 questions. The question 1 is, what's your winning aspiration? And we'll go through a few examples of that. So the purpose of the business, the purpose of the enterprise, what's guiding us here? The second question is, where are we going to play? And that's, where is our competition? What geography? What's the product category? What the consumer segments? What channels? Are we going vertical? Are we going horizontal? How will we win? So this is where the competitive advantage sits. And so what's going to give us the edge? Then the next question is, what capabilities do we need? And then the final question is, the boring stuff is, what are our systems and structures need to be in place? Now, the beauty about this slide here is that it filters down through the whole of the organization. I'll give you an example about this in a minute. And what's critical in business, particularly if you've got 1 or 2 layers in your business or you're growing and you're going to get 2 or 3 layers or maybe 4 or 5, is you need to have all those layers aligned. Otherwise, if your business layers are not aligned, then you're basically competing with yourself internally and you're not being as efficient as you can be. But here is we've got a corporate level cascade, and this basically means the board sits there and makes these decisions at a high level. We're going to be doing this. And then there's the next level down, which is the strategic group or the management. And then there's the next level down, which is the individuals. Each person within your organization should be able to do this cascade of choices that then filters up into the next level and then filters up into the corporate. So here's an example. I've got a client in Southeast Queensland. They're an Indigenous group. They provide camping. They have campsites, and they offer family-friendly focused campsites. So their corporate aspiration to win is a couple of sentences. They're basically saying, we want to be the best Indigenous organisation that provides family-friendly services, ecologically sustainable way. Management gets that and says, okay, well, we're the management team. How are we going to, what's our aspiration that's going to help us achieve the board's aspiration? Then within that business, there's the bookings team. And so the bookings team have to do their own cascade of choices. And they say, well, what's our winning aspiration that fills in what management want us to do, which then helps management achieve what the board wants to do. There's grounds and maintenance people. So the booking staff will have things like, they're the first point of call with the customers. What experience are they giving the customers? Is it frictionless? Are they providing the right information? Are they fulfilling this obligation of the winning aspiration? Maintenance and cleaning, their winning aspiration is, and I've written this down, is they want to have the cleanest units that people stay in on campgrounds that are comparable to 4 or 5-star hotels. So when people leave that campground, they'll go, gee, that's the cleanest campground I've been in. It competes with the Hyatt I stayed in 2 weeks ago. So that's the team's aspiration.
Yeah.
And then we've got the administration, and the administration says our job is to support maintenance, is to support bookings, is to support management. So you can see how this cascade works in terms of getting team alignment.
Yeah.
And it
So
works down to the individual.
So what happens, Eddie, if you're a sole trader? Like, so let's we've got bigger companies, but what happens if you're just trading on your own?
So this comes back to this.
You would just stick with this.
Yes, you stick with this one.
Yeah, right.
And where the sole trader is asking those questions that are similar with these different layers, what capabilities do I need to have in place? So this becomes a really key part. This fourth question becomes really important.
Yeah.
And then this fifth question, what management systems do I need, is equally as important for a sole trader.
Great.
I'll explain.
Or a smaller team. Yeah. So
a smaller team. That's right.
Yeah. So basically, just to be clear, and just to sorry to interrupt, but so if you're a much smaller organization, just think about this one page here.
Yeah.
But if you're a bigger organization with more teams, then you would do this one, the nested choice cascades. But basically it's the same process, but each team within the bigger organization is doing that. They're doing their each piece that's always lining up. So it's aligning everybody.
And I'll show you why I like it and how clean it is. So this is question 1. What is your winning aspiration? And there's some clues here. It says the winning aspiration is an ultimate goal or mission for the business. And there's questions that Martin says you need to ask yourself, obviously ask yourself, but keeping it really simple, measurable, ambitious, but achievable, focus on winning, just not playing, consumer centric, and inspires internal teams, particularly if you're going to be growing from a sole trader to maybe more
smaller. Yeah.
So I had a builder. Sorry, go, Jill.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so on this winning aspiration, what I oftentimes suggest to people as well is to go, okay, think about the kind of lifestyle you want at this season in your life and create the business around that. So the winning aspiration. So an example, I had a restaurant owner that he had little kids and he was really frustrated that he would be working into the evenings, and he wanted to, he wanted to be at home in the evenings to cook dinner for his families, but all of the jobs he had before were evening restaurants. And so we restructured it so it was a morning and lunchtime cafe, so he could have the time in the evenings with his family. So is that linking up with the winning aspiration, or you were suggesting maybe further down the line?
No, I think it's important because of the sole trader or the small business, we're here is what capabilities need to be in place and what management systems, and so and where will we play and how will we win? So
so it's really important. It's important. It's important to also figure out what kind of lifestyle you want to create.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you don't want to be working in the evenings, but you've created a business that works in the evenings, that's not going to work. Or if you've got little kids at home and you need to be able to do school hours or whatever it might be, that winning aspiration it can change over time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And because it just becomes training. So we're going to ask ourselves these questions. So if we look at that and say, what's our winning aspiration? Well, we're going to mix a bit of business and family in here. And this is, I want to be able to have a restaurant that fulfills my ambition to be a creative, chef that services the market whilst at the same time allowing me to spend quality time with my family. So where will we play? And that's the answer to that question. So where are we going to play? Where, what geography, what product categories? It's product categories or service categories. Like dinner time's not going to really suit that aspiration, right? But morning and lunchtime is.
Yes.
My choice is I'm only doing breakfast and lunch and no dinners.
Yeah.
I've made that choice.
The kids, Pick up the kids. That's a goal of mine. Go do that. Yeah.
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 But the point is, we've made that choice. And that's what
Yes.
Martin says. You've got to choose.
Mm.
Once you start learning how to choose, then we start working out, well, how are we going to win? Come to that. And then what capabilities do we need to have in place to be able to do breakfast and lunch better than everyone else so they don't have to worry about dinner?
Yes.
And then what management systems do I need so that it frees up my time so I can spend time at night with the kids?
Yes. Instead
All
of
those,
time at night doing the numbers.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that's right.
Perfect.
So you can fit all that in. You just have to, answer those questions and prompt. So if you get this aspiration right, and it should take you a little bit of time to do. So as I was about to say, I did just one for a builder, and says, "Oh, what should the aspiration be?" And I said, "Well, think about the market you're playing in. What do your consumers want? They want safety. They want to have a good experience. They want to be comfortable dealing with you, and they want to have a home, not a house. They want to have a home to create memories." So straight off the bat, we came up with this one-liner as an aspiration. But when we do the next couple of slides, I want to show you how we can change this aspiration. So this aspiration is, I want to be the leading the market in creating amazing memories for homeowners by building homes, not houses, homes for life and for profit.
Yeah. And that's more meaningful as well.
Yeah.
Like if you were building houses,
Yeah.
you could potentially feel a bit over it in time.
Yeah.
But when you've got the intention, I'm building somebody's home,
Yeah.
and all your team is like, this is somebody's home,
Yeah.
then they would want to have better quality response. So yeah, this is exciting. Cool.
And so something really simple like this, I could tell you now that Carl is the foreman, and Carl, Jules and her partner went out to site today. They had an appointment to see you, but you weren't there. Now, you remember our winning aspiration is we want to be leading and creating amazing memories for homeowners. Now, do you think not turning up to a meeting fulfills that obligation about creating amazing memories? And so, right, and this is just a conversation you're having with an employer, and you haven't gone into any HR, you haven't gone into any, performance management. You're just talking about your winning aspiration. You're making that a living thing. And then Carl will go, "You're right, I let you down." So those people are going to have a memory that we don't. Our experience is not great, and I'm not feeling safe here because you're not doing things, you're not turning up the things. So if I then ask you to put in a winning kitchen, am I going to get that? So this aspiration really kicks a lot of goals all through the business, particularly if you're a sole trader and then starting to grow. This is business. This is what we stand for. How do you fit in with that?
Yeah.
Now, I'll show you now in the next couple of questions how we can change this and why you say what you say is right, in that these things are a moving feast. So, sorry, some examples. So Procter & Gamble, I won't tell you what their products are. You might know about them, but we'll come to one of them in the end. Their winning aspiration is to touch and improve lives of more consumers in more places in the world more completely. So they're not selling products. Their winning strategy is to get deeply integrated into the daily lives of their customers. Nike, we know about, bringing inspiration and innovation to every athlete. They don't talk about shoes. Lego talk about inspiring and developing builders of tomorrow. So they're talking about future generations. They don't mention the word toys. Southwest Airlines is a controversial one. They want to be the world's most loved, flown and popular airline. So they're trying to connect with customers. And I really like IKEA because it defies economics, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But it wants to create a better everyday life for many people. And it wins by getting really well-designed furniture, but putting it into people's day-to-day lives on a global scale. And it's a really interesting business case, IKEA, which we'll come to. So here we are. Where do you want to play? Where do we play? This is talking about defining your market and its segments. So in your case, Jules, you're talking about the breakfast segment and the lunch segment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it means talking about things like geography. So what's our choice? We're just going to do this in a special part in Newcastle, or we're going to do this in a special part in Hobart, or a special part in Melbourne. We're going to be focused on what consumer segments are we going to be focusing on? Budget conscious enterprise clients. So here's the thing. We come back to the winning aspiration I put my builder through.
Mm.
And I say it sounds really great, but leading the market in creating amazing memories for homeowners. Well, if we come back to where we want to play, well, which customer segment is that?
It's not going to be the investors, like the
Right.
investor builders. It's
Yeah.
going to
So,
be the homeowner builders. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. But we got so many segments in homeowners. We can say we want to create amazing memories for first homeowner buyers.
Mm.
So I'm now starting to get really starting to get focused. And that's why that's why coming back to the aspiration, we keep going through this geography.
Yeah.
What product type or category? Now we can go back to the aspiration. So we're building homes, or we're building homes for first home buyers, or we're building homes for the rich and famous, and that's a totally different.
It's completely different market.
Yeah.
And so so I suppose it's also when you come back to thinking about the kind of lifestyle you want, it's also like that could also drive a little bit of that as well, because if you only want to build 5 houses a year instead of 50 houses a year, then you want to make sure that you're getting that right, those right kind of customers in as well. So it's working smarter, not harder. Yeah.
So this is a really interesting question. That's why I love this model, because when you start asking these questions, you can start drilling down. And we say, well, geographies, what are we? We're a sole trader, so it's not really relevant, but we're going to position ourselves here because the chances of getting breakfasts and lunches in this spot are greater than if we're in that spot. Customer segments. So we're talking about the morning, brunch, lunch, product types and categories we've just talked about. Builders are great. I had a builder that was just built decks. That's all he wanted to do. I'm building decks. So everything, he's paraphernalia, he's a builder, but all he wants to do is decks. I have another builder that says, so here's a question for the audience. I had a builder that's, whose business was called Second Story Renovations, second story extensions. So what do you think he does?
Oh, he does the first stories, right?
Yeah.
No, but that's another thing. That's another thing that small business owners I see. They see the likes of Nike and they go, oh, I've got to come up with like a brand that is not very easy for people to understand. But second story extensions have that as a URL, and that's super simple and easy for people to find. Like name your business, what people are looking to find. That can also be really, really helpful, and it can also parachute you into the clients that you want to be working with.
That's right, and that's the key, right? So once you learn this cascade, everything's going to be focused on the choices you make, so it has this reinforcing effect.
Yes.
And that's how you're going to know you're winning, because you're getting the same type of customer all the time. So my builder is going to get first homeowners all the time making that phone call. He's not getting phone calls from guys that want to do renovations or extensions. That way he knows he's not winning, because he's still getting phone calls and doing work in this segment he doesn't want. But if he's getting more and more calls in the segment he does want, he knows, or she knows, I should say, is winning. I was having lunch with a marketing person the other day, and I said, there was this fellow and he had this high-vis vest. He was a tradie, and on the back of it, it had plumber. And I said to my marketing, I said, what do you make of that? And he goes, absolute genius. There is no doubt who that guy is.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So here's the question. And you try and complete this model right down the back. We will serve what customer segment? We will serve first homeowners in the Newcastle area. So I'm making a choice. I'm
Mhm.
choosing two choices with their first home through these channels. And you have to decide what channels you're going to do that through.
Yeah.
And that's why it's fun, because if you sit down with people in your business or your best friend or your partner and go through these, it becomes these become really interesting discussions, and it's not complicated.
Yeah.
How will you win? This is a whole separate session again.
Mm.
Winning means defining how the business will distinguish itself from others. Okay, we've got the word competitors here. This is about defining the distinctive way you create value for your chosen customers in the way that beats the competition. So if you've chosen to be a builder for first home buyers, then you're going to develop a lot of information, a lot of IP with those people. So I'm thinking about the law around offset for stamp duty, the way bankers fund these developments, what do banks do, how do they give out the money when you're making progress claims. So you've got relationships with the banks and you understand that system. So you build your system to accommodate for the homeowner, the first homeowner, and the stresses that they're facing with getting money. So you start to align, and if you start to make this frictionless, then you know you're starting to win. And so to do this, you need to think about two things only. Whether you take the cost advantage or whether you take the differentiation advantage. So am I going to be, so we've got Walmart and Ryanair. They're low cost providers, but they have an acceptable standard of quality.
Yeah.
Or we have the differentiators like Apple and Dyson. They're just something about their product. So they're the choices you have to make.
Yes.
Now,
and I can also say that if you do the cost advantage, I was literally talking to somebody about this today, and they had increased their turnover by 30%, and their gross profit, so their turnover less the direct costs, so their gross profit had only moved by less than 1%. And I was like, what happened here? And it was literally because they were doing the cost advantage on a really big client, and which is not their normal thing to do. And they had so much extra hassle, so many more dramas, but didn't get the income piece in. And yes, I was talking to them about, did you win? Yes, you got the turnover. That's really great for your ego, but you didn't get the profit. And in fact, your profit is less than 30% of your profit last year with a lot lower turnover. So, so it's about being really mindful, and sometimes also catching yourself when, you, I oftentimes see business owners go, oh, I want to get that 500,000, or I want to get that $1 million turnover, or I want to get that $10 million turnover, whatever the number might be, but they're not thinking about how that actually helps them win in the profitability stakes, and also on their lifestyle, reducing how much stress that they're bringing into their world. So it's sometimes one of those things that I find that you can make that focused choice, but sometimes outside opportunities come and kind of try to drag you a little bit away from that focused choice.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Eddie?
Yeah, and this is what Martin says is the hardest thing in business is the choice, because
And sticking to it.
Yeah. So
it's choosing and sticking to it.
Yeah. So here's the question that we all need to ask ourselves. Is this an opportunity, or is this a distraction?
Mm, that's a tweetable moment. Um,
Right? So I can go down this burrow and, oh, yeah, it's just taken 2 weeks of my life and it just distracted me. Choice. And it's a hard thing, choice, because you always feel in the back of your mind you're giving something away,
yes.
but you're not winning. And you see how these cascades now start. We've made this decision that we're going to be a cost player. What
Mm,
capabilities do we need? So we're going to be talking about IT and efficiencies, and what management systems do we need? Well, we need to have proper systems and structures so that we can measure if we are cost competitive, if our costs are coming down.
mm,
When we're starting to have conversations up here with our capabilities, we need to be good negotiators, because I'm going to be talking to this supplier and I want to get the best possible price, because that's going to bring down my cost of goods sold, which will increase my
yeah.
margin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is how these things.
Mm. And look, for small business owners, like the majority of the people that are in our world, being a cost competitor is next to impossible. You know,
Mm,
you really have to find your value and
yeah,
stick to your value, and have that slightly like the differentiation advantage.
yeah.
I think
So
because like you said earlier, that's your unique advantage.
yeah,
So go for the unique advantage and stay away from trying to compete on cost, I reckon,
yeah.
for
So
for our
if you
business
do if you
owners.
do keep compete on cost, there's a lot of things you can do. And if we stick with our home builder, for instance,
Mm,
they can start being cost advantage. And this is a real life example of a crisis in the building industry about, say, 12 years ago. And a lot of properties were going on the market as mortgagee in possession, or land development, land banks. Um, and what this builder did was, he and a few of his mates got together some money and they bought 6 or 7 blocks in this regional town.
mm,
And they said, okay, we're going to build 6 homes, 6 houses, and that means we're going to need six. We've got 2 bathrooms in each. We've got six bathrooms. We've got 6 toilets, three laundry bins, etc. So I added all
mm,
this up, and then went to a couple of suppliers in the region and said, I'm going to buy this off you.
mm.
Give me your best price.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the cost advantage. The differentiation advantage, when we come to the other parts of the cascade, we're starting to talk a lot here about research and development and having this unique proposition that you put to customers. Now, I've got highlighted in the bottom, be careful. Sometimes you can try and be a hybrid between cost advantage and differentiation.
Mm,
And the only player that's been able to do that successfully is IKEA,
mm.
uh, because this is what's called playing in the middle.
Yeah.
And you don't maximize your profits by playing in the middle. You're either going to buy low GI white bread from Aldi at $1.99 a loaf, or you're going to go to Whole Foods and pay $15 a loaf for sourdough.
Yeah.
But if you try and do the $4.99, what market are you trying to tap into?
Mm.
So you just need to be really careful if you're trying to do both. It's possible, but it is the hardest choice to make. Now, what capabilities? So the capabilities refer to essential resources, skills, and expertise needed to successfully implement. So I'm going back to my builder. Obviously, it needs to be a qualified tradesperson. It needs to be, or she needs to be really good at negotiating, good at planning, very good at communicating. And this is the question you need to ask yourself: is what must we be really good at in order to deliver where we want to play and how we want to win? And this is talking about core competencies, differentiation or not differentiate. If we are differentiating, make it really hard to copy,
Mm.
along directly with how you plan to win. If you're doing differentiation, you're going to need a lot of investment and focus on, product development, and also what the customers value. So it's getting in and knowing and understanding what your customers want. And so you can see now how the choice at the top then delivers the choice next. And then to really find, when we talk about our capabilities, it becomes really fine now. We only deal with first homeowners. So we need to know everything about that market. When's the land going to be released? Where's the land going to be released? What parcels? Who's likely to be the customer there? Who's likely to be the developer to release that land, to get in there at the grass and start knowing the landscape? Or these are the better blocks, or these are the harder blocks, or this is on a hill, or this is in a hole, different type of build.
Yeah.
That's the capabilities we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, go on.
I was just going to say, sometimes I see it also said it's their zone of genius. Like, this is the thing that they do really, really, really well.
Yeah.
And they're very well known for that. So yeah, it could be that area as well. Yeah.
So I've just put Amazon as an example here, just to highlight capabilities. So if you sit and think about Amazon's business and Prime, delivery of Prime, you think about, my daughter was in America and she needed some legs to put under a couch that she bought off someone who got rid of the legs.
Yeah.
They were 9 inches, which is in the States. When the 9-inch legs came, they were too big. So she said, I'll return that and I need 6 inches. And she did all this within 48 hours.
Yeah.
Now, what technical infrastructure and data and logistics and client obsession to be able to have 9-inch, 6-inch, 3-inch legs that you deliver within 24 hours, get it returned within 24 hours, and get 6-inch legs back within 48 hours. This massive assortment at scale. You can start to see now how, by choosing the space you're working in and playing in, the capabilities you need to be able to deliver that. So I like the Amazon example because it's really easy to digest. You think about that on a global scale, what they've managed to do, and obviously it hasn't been done overnight, but it's purely been driven by customer obsession. I just think it's incomprehensible how that works.
Yeah, and the logistics of it, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and I suppose when we bring it back to our own businesses, it's like, okay, so how do we make the business work for us in the area that is our expertise, and we're also finding the kind of customers we want to work with. So, you might not have patience to deal with cranky customers, or, very high maintenance customers, or whatever it might be. So how do you weed all of them out so that you're really getting focused on working with the kind of people that is your people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it comes back to where you want to play.
Exactly right.
And am I winning? And if I'm not winning, how to change course a little bit and tweak it just a smidge so that you get closer to winning.
Yeah. So you answer this question. See, you say, what segment are we in? Geographic area, and service and category and channel. And then the last one, which people often overlook, because it is it is where a lot of businesses get unstuck. If you asked me the biggest reason why businesses hit the wall, it's because they don't have these basic management systems under control.
Yeah.
And so processes, policies and procedures and systems, metrics and KPIs. If you want to be a low-cost provider, how do we measure that? And how do we tie in that with incentives and culture for staff if and when we do employ, or we do have employment? Governance, who's responsible for what? And then, of course, the financial management, the budgeting, the forecasting, and the long-term assessment of the business. But they're not broad and they're well defined, because as you start chunking down this cascade, these become narrower and narrower and narrower, so that your systems, structures, policies, processes, and financials are all tied to that one goal of cost differentiator, or sorry, cost competitive, or differentiator in this space with these customers.
Yes.
And to be able to take those analyses out and start saying, okay, yep, I'm starting to win here because I'm now dealing with the people that I want to be dealing with.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect.
And so Procter and do
Gamble.
open question about Procter and Gamble. I don't know if you know about Procter and Gamble. They're global.
Yes.
They've got all the household cleaning products, cosmetics, soaps. They're just enormous.
Yeah.
They are enormous.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere. So they looked at this thing called Olay. It's a skin product. And when they looked at Olay, they said, oh, it's currently in the sort of special basket when you go to the pharmacy. It's sitting near the checkout, and it's like a little tube, and it's priced at $2.95. And Procter and Gamble did some research, and this is the choices. So I'm going to go through a worked example of a multinational corporation, how they just narrowed down on Olay and how that worked. So they decided they wanted to be the leading skincare brand globally, and they wanted to tap into the existing Procter and Gamble beauty and care business that tied in, because they also do shampoos.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to win convincingly in those markets. So what they did is, so where we want to play is we want to move up market. We want to take Olay, and instead of being $2.99, we want to take it up market. So they created this market. They created a channel called Mestige, which is mass prestige products.
Okay.
And the channel was the mass retailers.
Yeah.
Now, back then, this is old now, but back then, the people that were using skincare products were, ladies of sort of 50, 60 years of age. And they said, well, there's a younger market, because if you actually do the research, aging starts very young. So if we can get into the 30 or 40-year-olds who have got a higher disposable income and say, hey, you want to get into anti-aging earlier. And they said, right, we're going to sell in North America and the UK. So now you can see how their choices are playing out.
Yeah.
So they need to have the better skincare product. The market campaign was this. They did some research. Well, they got some research from universities. There's a whole bunch of universities do amazing research across a whole bunch of things. And they said there were 7 signs of aging. And that's what they were going to work with, the 7 signs of aging. And they're going to attack this Mestige market segment and position it with 30 or 40-year-olds. The capabilities they needed to basically was leverage their existing scale and beauty design and innovation. Mm-hmm. And they had a whole bunch of Procter & Gamble systems and processes. Now, they took a $2.95 product, and within the space of 3 years, it was selling in these Mestige, David Jones, Coles, David Jones, Myer type outlets for $35.
Yeah.
They put a different brand on it, and they changed the packaging, but they were able to charge like so much more because they went into a different market and tried to educate that market that actually aging starts at 30, anti-aging starts at 30, not 60.
Yeah, right.
And this is the product to do it. And now I think most people know about Olay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So, yeah, and so that was just going through that process and figuring out how you could do the same product at a higher price point, basically make more profit and get into a different target market.
Yeah. So
And so,
so
sorry, so this, sorry, I was going to say, so this little process, this 5-step process of strategic planning, you could potentially look at this every 6 months, like in the earlier days of your business, just fine tuning it, and then once every year, making sure that when like everybody's on the same page and going through that. Yeah, is that something that
Absolutely.
you would?
Absolutely. Because we can come back to that really broad. Now that we've just gone through these 12 pages, we can go through this really broad aspiration, and we can see that the one I came up with is lacking in a few things. Well, what market segment? What does amazing
Yes.
memories mean?
Yeah.
What category of homeowner? Where? Leading market in New South Wales, leading market in Newcastle, creating amazing memories for first homeowners, building homes for life, so that you buy this and you don't have to spend another cent for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So the more laser focused you can get, I've heard the phrase inch wide, mile deep. So you can find your customer base it's very, very narrow, but there's a lot of people in that in that field. And then that just makes everything so much easier for you to.
That's right. It's
like
those
who
choices.
you're talking to, how to talk to them, then you just become an expert in your field, and then everything's all hunky-dory.
That's right. You can imagine talking to a first home owner and they ring you up and say, "Oh, I see that you do first home owner builds. We're thinking about it." And you say, "Okay, whereabouts?" And say, "Oh, well, Newcastle, there's a new release." So you're talking about the new release. So you're ahead of the game. So you're talking about that new release at the new suburb that's been built over here. Yeah. Okay. That's been developed by so-and-so. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there's 400 blocks out there. Whereabouts?
Which block?
Yeah. Saying, okay, because that's the side that's really hilly, right? And that's going to cost you a little bit more because we have to cut into the hill. But there's other blocks out there that you might want to. So you're getting ahead of the game. You're actually starting to provide a service now and having a conversation and giving people information. So all of a sudden they're starting to feel comfortable and they're starting to feel safe. And the start of that experience is positive. And that's only because you know that segment so well, because you've chose to play in that area.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you don't have to keep chasing, all the new things that are coming and all that sort of stuff. You just stay really laser focused in that area. Yeah.
And this cascade also works for I'm not a psychologist, but if you think about, your child that wants to go to university. So what do you want to do? Where do you want to be? What's your winning aspiration in life? And what do you want to play? How are you going to, so you can ask these questions and and if you become really curious about them, then you can get really into this nitty gritty, this fun stuff about where and customer segment and how, and then whether we're going to be a cost advantage or a differentiator. And that's what Jeff Bezos in an interview, he did an interview for about an hour. And one thing he said in that interview just resonated. He said, "We spend a lot of time at Amazon with customer obsession, right? But what people in business don't think about is how to be the most efficient at delivering customer obsession."
Yes.
Right. And that comes down to those last two choices, the capabilities we need and the management systems to be super, super efficient.
To get that happening.
Yeah.
Cool.
Policies, procedures, step-by-step guides, skills, investment in research.
Awesome.
And it's good fun too. I've done it with groups of people, and it really gets the conversation going, and it really brings out some positive energy from the participants.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we've got 10 minutes to spare. I'm just going to ask the floor if anybody's got some questions for Eddie. If so, I think you can unmute yourself. So I think we've got Camille and Jessie still online. We've had a few other people drop off, I think because they needed some time. if we have no questions, then Eddie, I just want to say thank you so much for taking us through this strategic model
Yeah,
and of the cascade of choices. Like, it is very simple. Like, you've added so much depth to this process. So I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, like taking those 5-step processes and really getting clear on it, I think is, like you said before, is this an opportunity or is it a distraction?
yeah,
When you just keep that 5-step simple one pager together, then
yeah,
it's something that you can look at every single day and make sure
yeah.
that you're working in that space.
Yeah, so I love these 5 questions. They're hip pocket questions. You can keep them in your hip pocket or top pocket.
Mm.
You can memorize the questions,
Mm.
and if you're talking about, if you're talking with your bank manager about strategic plans, you can take them through a session saying, well, strategy plans, you can have more documented, but this is the way we do it. We've got this winning aspiration. We play in this space, and with laser focus on these choices, and we've got the right skills, and
Mm.
product differentiate. You want,
Yeah,
and that's our competitive advantage that no one can take.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's just really easy to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and it just keeps it simple.
Yeah,
And I think for a lot of small business owners, keeping it simple is we're oftentimes time poor, so keeping it simple is very important.
yeah, that's right. And if
Yeah,
something comes along, you say, yeah, look, sorry, that's not for us. We
yeah,
don't do, we don't do. I know a builder in North Queensland that all they do is $12 million bills.
yes, yeah,
So it's not going to them if you're doing a $200,000 extension.
no, yeah,
Fair, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So
Eddie,
yeah,
how do people get in touch with you if they want to get in
I
touch?
think they get in touch with you, Jules, and
Yeah,
and
and I can hook
yeah,
them up with you.
absolutely. And
Yeah,
because this is part of your remit as well, as to walk
yeah,
people through these, and you can
yeah,
ask. Yeah, this is a sort of first up conversation with a client saying, well, what's your winning aspiration? Where do you play? And like these are the sort of 5
mm,
questions you can ask, and um, and then I can get into the detail if people want to really drive deep into, because I've seen what doesn't work
mm,
and I've seen what works, and what works is simplicity really well executed.
yes, yeah, and that's yeah, keeping things easy, simple, and fun
Absolutely.
is so much better, so much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. So
Right.
you've helped that client make a decision that they deliver breakfast and lunch and not dinner. And that's probably changed his life.
Oh, totally,
Right.
totally. They ended up, opening several cafes,
Yeah.
and it was perfect for them,
Yeah.
and their families. So, yeah,
And my argument there is that you've made choice, and that's the hardest thing to do.
yes, yeah, yeah, definitely,
I'm choosing this and I'm going to back it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you so much. I really appreciate
Pleasure.
your time, and yeah, we'll send out the slides and the webinar, and yeah, we can go from there. So
Yeah, absolutely. We can do some
and
workshops if you've got people that want to do workshops, no problem.
awesome, awesome,
Okay.
awesome.
Thank you
Okay,
all.
well, thank you
No
so
problem.
much.
Bye.